Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator, bringing you the podcast series, How Did I Get Here? A series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, people in transition, or possibly feeling stuck, and giving them access to the stories of people who have been there, done that, so that they might be inspired with some new ideas, or maybe just comforted knowing they're not alone, that everybody starts somewhere, and everyone goes through times of transition and times when they feel stuck. Today, I'm very excited to be interviewing Kim Lakin Creger. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
And Kim is doing some very important work that she'll be explaining a little bit later on, but she's an instructor and facilitator for Darkness to Light, the Stewards of Children. And so we'll learn more about that in a bit. But before we get into what your profession is and what you're doing today, we always like to ask the icebreaker questions, which are, where did you grow up? What area of the country? How many siblings? Where were you in the birth order? And how do you think that shaped you as an adult?
Okay, I basically grew up in Littleton, Colorado. I moved here when I was 3. So from the time I was 3 till I was about 14, I grew up in Colorado, and I was the first child, and I had a younger brother. And then when I was about 7 or 8 or so, my mom's brother just came and lived with us. He was just a few years older than me. He was 16 or 15 at the time, something like that. And it kind of changed the dynamics in our family. I really felt like it was more like I was a middle child. And it was weird. It was a weird kind of dynamic how that happened when he came in, which I guess makes sense. He wanted to be the older, uncle who got respect. And I was like, no, you're just like a brother. So get over the respect thing.
It is interesting family dynamics, right? As I've done a lot of these interviews to hear, people who were oldest and then, family, splits, or that maybe there's a death in the family and then there's a new family is created and it's a blended family. So you go from being only to oldest, or maybe you go from oldest to youngest now. And it can really kind of mess with your psyche, right? In terms of what you were comfortable in or how you were, looking at your area of power in the family. So as a young person, did you play sports? Were you into music, dance, theater? What did you do for entertainment?
I love gymnastics. I didn't really go to a whole lot of classes. I would just do it in my yard. I got into baton for a while, and then when I was in junior high school, I started, it was before junior high, I started playing the flute. Now, I don't think I could play, I might be able to play a note, but probably not a song any longer. And I just did things around my yard, whatever I could do in my yard and learn, like baton lessons,
sounds
gymnastics,
like you entertained yourself then. You probably were of that era where we did our own entertainment, right? There wasn't the digital and video games and all, or the parents taking you everywhere, it sounds like.
Right, exactly. No, go out and play and don't come back till it's daytime.
Okay, would you say you're an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm an introvert. Definitely an introvert.
Definitely an introvert. Okay. And on the fun meter scale of 1 to 5, 1 being couch potato and 5 being life of the party, where do you put yourself?
Well, and I also started thinking about that. And I said, it depends on who is in my company. Mm-hmm. So adults, I have a hard time getting into, like partying and things like that. So that's never been my thing. But if I'm in with kids, then I can find all kinds of fun things that we can do. We can do crafts and, play games and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of who I'm with.
I love that explanation. Several interviewees have a similar explanation in terms of it's who I'm with is where I'm going to be either extroverted or introverted, and how comfortable I am being the life of the party or maybe just hanging out. And sometimes it's just about safety or security and just know them. But I love that. It's adults or kids. So cool. So obviously kids is a big focus in your life. So
that's smart. Yes. And I spent many years in children's ministry. And so, I could talk to hundreds of kids at a time. And but you get me in front of hundreds of adults and it's a little different. I have to work on that a little. a little bit more.
Well, I admire that. I gotta say, I'm probably the opposite. I don't know that I could relate to kids, but I can relate to adults. So we all have our strengths, right?
Yeah, we've all have our gifts.
So on the risk meter, same scale, 1 to 5, where do you feel like you are on taking risks?
Oh, um, well, and that depends as well. So I think it depends on if I'm passionate about it or not. So if I'm passionate, then yeah, I'll take some risks, getting into this line of work and speaking up for children. And that's a big risk that I'm happy to take because children need us to speak up for them. But if you're going to ask me to do something physical, maybe not, not so much.
So not an adrenaline junkie about skydiving or
That
rock
sounded
climbing.
fun at one time until I started having spine surgeries, and then I'm like, no, maybe not do that. That might not be a good idea.
Okay, well, so let's talk a little bit about what it's like to be an instructor and facilitator for Darkness to Light, the Stewards of Children. So tell us kind of how you got into that and what you do in that capacity, and then we'll get into how did I get here.
Okay, sure. So I found Darkness to Light a few years ago, 4.5 years ago or so. I believe on Facebook is how I kind of came across them. Of course, I was starting to look into certain things that I could do to help, survivors. And I was just at the beginning of starting my real journey of being public about, my story. And so I was kind of looking around at different things, and I really wanted to bring something to my community. So Darkness to Light came up, and I went, oh, that's perfect. That sounds like something that I can do because I can go Darkness to Light. How it's structured is we do a 2-hour class for adults, and about 35 minutes of that class is a video, which is with survivors as well as professionals and things that talk about their experiences, and then how we can, be proactive and start reacting and responding and reporting child sexual abuse when it happens. So that's kind of how it all got started. And then, like I said, I do this 2-hour class. I've been able to go into the local libraries and set up classes. And then if people don't sign up, then I can just cancel that class for that week. But now with the pandemic all going on, we have switched to a lot of online classes as well. So we were just trained a few months ago into how to do that online so that we don't have to get out so much, and we can reach a lot more people that way too, which is nice. I still like that one-on-one interaction though, because we do get a lot of different questions that you might not think about. So we start with 35 minutes and then we spend about 20 minutes asking questions and debriefing that first part of the film. And then we go back into another 35 minutes or so of the video, and then we stop and debrief. And at the end of that 2 hours, you get a certificate for 2 continuing education credit hours, if that's something that you're interested in taking advantage of. And we also have several other modulars then too that we provide on Darkness to Light's website that you can go on and you can do either on your own, or you can have me come in and do those modulars, which are about 30 minutes long, with your group or organization or nonprofit or church. I've been to many churches and preschools and things like that. So
okay, was it started by a church or is it a nonprofit itself, or how? Well, I don't understand the association of it, I guess.
Yeah, so it was started in 2012, I believe is when it first originated. And at that time, they were just trying to, help the community. It was started in South Carolina. And so they wanted to, help their community. So they kind of then they started getting a little bit more information about how we can help children. and started bringing in a few more professionals and PhDs on the subject, and found that they could make this curriculum in a way that somebody like me who hasn't gone to college and gotten their education can go out and facilitate this class to their community, so that you're educating, them on how to, so we do these 5 steps to protecting children. And that's how we kind of go through this. And these steps, you've got to learn the facts, learn what is going on around you in your community or where your children are going to school. And that's something that I didn't understand so much as a young parent, is that I can go into that school and I can say, hey, look, what is going on here? Do you have the code of conduct available for parents? Do you have open classes so that adults can and parents can come and watch and see what's going on, or open classrooms so that other people can see what's going on in the classrooms? What do you do? At lunchtime, are the younger kids with the older kids at lunchtime, and what kind of danger could that possibly create when they're outside on the playground together? So, looking at all those different circumstances, we're going to help you understand kind of where you can just be the most alert and proactive in protecting your children.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like.
Is this what you always wanted to be when you were a young person? Were you thinking, I always want to work with kids, when you thought about your career? If I take you back to junior high and high school, did you have an idea of what your career was going to be? Or did you even think you wanted a career, I guess?
No, I don't think I really. There was a time that I wanted to be a nurse, and I had an aunt who was going to school to be a nurse. So I think I just kind of loved that. Also, my mom had epilepsy, and so we dealt with that all of my childhood, and I think that maybe that kind of sparked something in me at one point. I want to be a nurse, but then when I got a little bit older, I just wanted to be a mom. That was all I wanted to do. I just wanted to stay home with my kids. I wanted to be able to have, a safe place for my kids and where I could be with them and to keep them safe. And so that was really, kind of my heart, is to just be home. And I was blessed enough to be able to do that too. So it was more my story that has brought me to this place of being able to go out and now talk about it. But it's only taken about 50 years. So that's all. Just a few.
Just a few years, just a few years.
But that is so common. I mean, it is, common in survivors that a lot of times they don't tell ever, or, they wait many, many years before it comes out. So.
Which then I would guess brings about a lot of pain and shame and suffering in a lot of different ways, right? Maybe even physically as well as emotionally. And then how you end up raising your kids, I would guess, then are impacted by some of that.
Right. Absolutely. And, as much as I tried to protect my kids, I tried to be everywhere they could to protect them. I didn't have the tools that Darkness to Light, Stewards of Children provides. So I was just, trying to be wherever they were. And there were times that I didn't, I couldn't be everywhere that they could be. And what else I noticed is, as being a survivor, is I think that some of that was reflected onto my kids. So I noticed that a couple of my children have depression issues, and I've, as they were in their teenage years and we were starting to experience that, I thought, how could that be when, I gave them such a good life? But but now I know, since I've done so much research and I've done a lot of this, that's a common reality, is, we don't know as survivors everything that we are reflecting onto our children, and what they're picking up. They could be picking up that, my children knew that they couldn't go over to other children's houses unless I knew their parents. And there were many fights that we had about that. I was the mean mom because I wouldn't let them just go run and do whatever the neighborhood was doing. And so yeah, in those aspects, at times I think I probably could have handled things a little bit different, and talked to my children a little bit more about why I was so afraid for them to, go into a stranger's house. Even though it's not always about strangers, as we know, it's not just the stranger danger that we need to be talking about. We need to be talking about the realities of somebody within our family or somebody within our friend group or something is a better possibility probably than a stranger that would do something to your child. So, I am very blessed to be able to now kind of pass this information that I've learned the last few years on to my grandkids. And instead of feeling like I can't talk to them, I just provide books for them on their bookshelf that talk about body safety. And they know that, this is a place that they can come and talk to grandma about anything. And I hope that continues throughout their teenage years as well. But just kind of giving them more that positive outlook on this, on what life brings. I mean, it's scary. Our kids are growing up with these days, so they need to be informed.
Yeah, that's what's occurring for me as I'm listening to you is this, how important education is and awareness of a young person, but then also the adults around them. I mean, when you talked about going into schools, I was like, well, schools are safe, right? And yet you're going, and I hadn't even thought about, obviously we want them to be safe. But then you think about, you mentioned that, older kids with younger kids, and then what does that dynamic do? Same with probably friend groups, right? They go to someone's house and then there's an older sibling. And then that might be, like you said, the access and the probability of it not being a total stranger is probably greater than someone that they know, right? And that is in proximity, which is then very awkward on how do you react and how do you get out of the situation. And so that's probably, yeah.
And some of the books are just really good. And I believe I left those with you as well. I sent you a copy over. If not, then I will do that. But I do have a list of books that are available that just kind of help kids. And, it talks about even like a little boy is having a sleepover and his friend does something that he doesn't feel real comfortable with. And he goes and tells his friend's mom that he wants to go home. And then his friend's mom says, no, we're not going to bother your parents, just go back and play. And he goes, instead of, going back into that room with the little boy, he went and he locked himself in the bathroom and slept in the bathroom for the night, because that's where he felt safe and that's where he could get away to get safe. So even just giving kids those little tools of, this could happen, and this is a tool that you could use to kind of get away and help you feel safer if you're not able to get a hold of somebody who is a safe person. So that's important too. That was one of my first experiences as well. It was with an older child. And, unfortunately, we don't know what else happens in other people's houses, And so, like you said, just being aware of older, even when you have like a family get together, even those older kids that are playing in the basement with the younger kids and kind of keeping an eye on them. Well, the adults need to be keeping an eye on them too. We can't just pawn that all off on the older kids. We need to know what's going on with them. So,
and the ability to talk about it, so that if you can take the shame out and just talk about the fact of what happened, then you have more information than it's been hidden. You don't want to talk about it because there's so much shame that goes with it that then probably leads to the fear and the depression and then all the other different things that could come about.
Right. And the other thing that we really talk about too is saying the correct anatomical names for all the body parts, because we are talking about, we can talk about eyes and nose and mouth and, ears, and then we start to go down the body, and we're like, those things on, the top of you, or those your bottom, and but where we're not empowering kids if we're not telling them the right names of their body parts. We're saying you have to protect, or nobody is allowed to touch your privates or anything, but then we're saying, calling it a cookie, or calling, something that would really be confusing to try and get out of a child. So, a child is talking to their teacher about an abuse that happened, and, my daddy ate my cookie. How would that teacher know that that was actually an abuse going on if they're using these cutesy little names for body parts? So it also, what we found is that it will also deter abusers too. So, if an abuser is trying to touch a child and they're like, well, my mom said that you can't touch my penis, then, they will also, they'll be like, whoa, that kid is saying the name of this. That kid's probably going to go back and tell their parents. They've learned about the body parts, and they're going to talk about it. So that is a good deterrent for abusers as well.
Yeah. The level of education you're talking about, I mean, there's so many pieces to this. So I guess when you found this darkness to light, or, it must have been really eye-opening for you to say, what there's a program and there's all these aspects of it. And, I mean, is that kind of what really awoke in you to say, I need to be a part of this. I want to be an advocate and a steward for children, and like you said, take that risk, because you said you're a risk taker when you're passionate about something. So.
Right. Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. And as I think I said earlier too, that it's really opened my eyes to a lot of different things too, that I didn't realize about myself, how I react to things. Oh yeah, that's because of this trauma that happened. And so I've been able to kind of to do a lot of healing as well as I'm out there helping others. So yeah, it's really exciting. And we're doing, more and more, Darkness to Light is doing more and more research all the time on different curriculums that we can provide for people, for instance, like the special needs. I know that they've been working on that for a while. And so, we're not just going to stop right here and say, oh, we've got it all figured out, because, generations are going to be changing, and things too, and things change. And, we need to start talking more about the digital aspect of things. And so, we're trying to kind of get a little bit more information out about that at this time, is because all the kids are on the internet all the time these days.
Well, especially with COVID, right? I mean, now their whole world has become digital.
Right.
And, I was throughout the COVID thing, on different webinars and information, and, one of the side, really bad side effects they were saying of the COVID and kids being at home is that many times, being around coaches and teachers and other adults is when kids might reveal that something's going on, and now they're not in those other environments, they're just at home. So if the home life isn't safe or isn't productive environment for them, they're losing out on opportunities to get help. So that's got to be hard for you too. You said that you're doing your training online. Well, if mom or dad or older sibling is in the room and young person is there, how do they, that seems like it would be really hard to navigate that.
Yeah. And that's what I heard as well. I heard that the statistics have been down for child abuse reporting, and it's not because the statistics are down. It's mostly because, they just have been isolated in their homes. And so, that's one reason why I think that people keep pushing to, I mean, some people may not have this on mind, but there are some school districts that are saying, we need to get the kids back in school. We need to get this, get their schedules back down, and get them into a place that they feel like they can tell, because it is probably more than 50% of the time it's somebody, they will talk to somebody outside of the family if something happens, and so it usually is a teacher or um, the para, whoever's helping out at recess, or whoever, which is the other aspect that I've been really looking at too. I talk to schools all the time, and the teachers, say, we've had this education, we've done this. Okay, that's great. I'm glad that you've done it. But what about the other, the other people that are there with your kids all the time? We need to get them educated as well, because they are the people that they'll probably go to. So, paras, we need to be in churches, talking to not only just the children's ministry, but everybody, because everybody in a church usually will come in contact with kids. So, just getting the whole church's involvement on watching out for children. And I like to say, I kind of in my mind have this little thought of just building these communities all over the place, all over Colorado, of communities of people that are just watching out for kids all the time. And, that would just make me really excited. Make me really happy.
Well, that would be the goal, right? Is that children are just in an environment where they can be their best and learn and grow, and there's no fear, and there's safety, and it's a stimulating environment from a growth and learning perspective, and it's not something that gets shut down, and that they start to withdraw from because of something negative going on. Wow.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you there. How do we create those communities?
Well, you can get on Darkness to Light and start either asking a facilitator to come to your organization, or you can take it online. You can take the 2-hour class online yourself, which is really helpful. And then, but of course, like I said, I really appreciate having a group together, like doing it on a Zoom call now that we can do it, just because you get so many outside questions and things like that can really be helpful. So
at what point do you consider that it's not children anymore? I guess I've got some friends with some teenage daughters that are going to be graduating and going to college, and I think, wow, college is also an opportunity where it's such a different environment than what you've been used to living at home. Does your program go all the way through to young adult, or what is there?
So the 2-hour class that I'm talking about, we say 15 or 16 is probably about a good age for them to be able to take this curriculum. And of course, even then, we'd want to have maybe a parent that has seen it before or is with them, just so that they can kind of follow up with them and make sure that everything's okay. Because it can be heavy. I've had some teenagers in my classes before, and where their mind goes through to is, this is my friend, and usually it goes to, I've already had a friend that has talked to me about this, and I didn't realize that this was like this, and I need to be able to then go tell somebody, and it's pretty heavy for a teenager to have to carry that. So you just want a parent there with them so that they can help them along the way. So 15, 16 up is what the Stewards of Children class is for. Now, I also became a facilitator for the Monique Burr Foundation, which is then a curriculum for children. So they work with Darkness to Light. They've just started this Prevent 360, and Darkness to Light is really geared towards adults, and we want adults to start taking more responsibility for this. And stop relying on the kids to always tell, when a lot of times they wouldn't even know what is happening, and so they don't know how to tell. But then we have the Monique Burr Foundation, which is centered around kids and helping kids understand body safety and some dangers around that. So we've done the 5 steps that we've taken from the Stewards of Children curriculum and also added it over into the Monique Burr curriculum for the children. And so, we tell children, be aware of what's going on around you. that, if something happens, to go tell somebody, and it is not ever your fault if you go tell somebody. And, so just kind of those steps as well. We kind of go through those steps with them too. So that is something that works best in a group of children, whether it be, a homeschool group that you wanted to get together, that I would be happy to come in and talk to, or it's just a little bit harder to do that online with kids. I mean, we can do it, and they probably know how to run computers more than we do. But it is good to be in person with children if we can do that. So, yeah, we do have both of those curriculums available for children, and then for the older teens, and then into adults as well.
Yeah. So I take it then that schools don't usually have any actual training about this? Or is
Well,
that part of what you do when you go in to talk to a school, is what, as a parent, you should be asking questions about, well, how have you trained your faculty? How have you trained the parents who come in? But then how do you also maybe train the kids? Is that what a parent should be looking for?
yeah, absolutely. And in Colorado, in 2015, there was a law passed. It's called Aaron's Law. And Aaron was a young child when she was sexually abused by a neighbor's uncle. And she thought the same thing at the time. She thought, I am being taught all about this stranger danger stuff. And here this is happening over here with this, this guy that I knew, my best friend's uncle. And so when she, became an adult, she decided that she was going to go out and she wanted to get into every single state and pass a law that you need to have some kind of education for children as well as adults when it comes to child sexual abuse prevention. Now, what we're finding though in Colorado, which is really unfortunate, is that they just pretty much adapted the part of the law that is educating kids. So there's a program, I forget exactly the name of it, but that's okay. In Colorado that I know is into the schools, and they do like this little puppet show. And I have a good friend who is a para at another school, not in our district, in another district. And she says, yeah, they bring this puppet show in every year, and none of the paras who are with the kids a lot of the times are allowed, and just a few of the teachers are allowed in there with them when they are doing that puppet show. And so a lot of the other teachers and paras don't even know what's going on for sure. And so again, they are putting that responsibility on the kids by just allowing the kids to have this little bit of knowledge, and then not, having the people around these children be educated in any way. So yeah, it irritates me. But if you are in a different state and you want to know if Aaron's Law has been passed in your state, then you can go on to aaronslaw.org, and they have a list of all of the states that this law has been passed. But we really would like to, change it, change that law back to, it should be the adults that are being educated first, and then we need to educate the children. So there's my little rant on that.
As your rant, well, thank you for sharing that, because it's, that is something that you think, again, you think back that the school systems and the systems are in place to support and create safe environments. And yet sometimes that's not the case. Or I guess I could imagine too, that a kid might bring it to a parent or a teacher, but if that teacher isn't taking them serious or doesn't understand what they're saying, or understanding the signs of what, because they may not be explaining it as well as they don't even know how to explain it, maybe. That then it could be missed, right? And then next thing you know, the kid's like, well, I'm not going to tell anybody then. So
right. Well, and that's huge in the recovery of a child, is how the person that they told reacts, unfortunately. And that's, something else that we talk about, is reacting responsible when it comes to somebody, a child telling you this. Because if you are a parent and they say, Uncle Joe did this to me, and you're like, I'm going to kill him, that's going to make them start to think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said anything, because even though they, even though Uncle Joe did this to them, they still love Uncle Joe. And, they don't want that friction between, that's not why they're telling, they just want it to stop, So that's why they're telling, they don't want that person to get into trouble necessarily. Should they? Probably be in trouble for it? Yes. But, as a child in that perspective, a lot of times that's where the pulling back, the child will say, oh, I didn't really mean that. That's not what I meant. And then they, will change their story and say it actually didn't happen because of a reaction of somebody else. So that's really important when talking with children too.
Yeah, how that person responds, and then they could also go take the child in front of the person, right, and say, did this really happen? And I mean,
Right.
you can see it could be so damaging, and yeah, if you're not equipped, right, and that's what you're saying is let's train these adults on how to respond, how to probably do the fact finding, get the information that you need, and how to, I guess, also comfort and and get through it, and what kind of
react. Yeah. How you react responsibly, how you report it as well. There's a lot of times I'll go into even preschools and they'll say, we were told to report, but we don't really know the steps to report. And so I will, ask the supervisor of that preschool, okay, what are the steps? It's good that you let your people know exactly what the steps are and maybe have it written down would be helpful as well. And, so that you know what to do in those circumstances.
Yeah. So back to your point, you said that the reporting of child abuse is down, but it's the reporting, it's not the abuse, right?
Correct.
And
Right.
it could be a number of factors. People don't know how to report it, but also if they're at home and the child is at home and not out with other adults that might be able to intervene and recognize that something happened. So,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
so many aspects of this, Kim. So thank you for doing work in this space and taking a stand and being a steward for children. Thank you.
Thank you for having me today. And it's something that we just need to get out there. We need to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and we need to be comfortable talking about it with our children too. So
you said you didn't really have a career in mind, but maybe what happened is a purpose and a passion is what came out, and now you're very purposeful and very impactful for your work. So typically I ask people when we're wrapping up, what can you share with us, what maybe personality trait or maybe habit or strength of yours do you think maybe has served you best now to do this line of work? What do you think you bring to the table?
Well, my passion, like I said, I don't have a degree in this, and that's what was so, intriguing to me about this Darkness to Light curriculum is that I didn't have to go out and get my degree to be able to start helping others, and so that's really exciting to me. I think, just knowing that that I'm making a difference is huge. Just knowing that I can make a difference in, even one child. It's kind of the cliche thing to say, but just knowing that I could make a difference for one child is huge. And so I think that my mom I know my mom had a really good work ethic, and so I probably get some of that from her. Is when I decide I'm going to do something, then I do go out and I do it full force. And like I said, there were other times that I was in a 9-to-5 job that I was like, oh, I don't really like this. But I do think that it was because I need to be out working with children more. And so this 9-to-5 job thing that I had in an office was not, getting me out there and being around kids and stuff. So I think just having my mom's work ethic has helped tremendously, probably, and me just being able to get up and start doing this.
Yeah.
And then it's just time.
and finding a program that just, like you said, the darkness to light, sounds like the name of the program was perfect for you. The Stewards of Children, perfect for you. I mean, all of those titles fit you so well as I've gotten to know you better. And now you can bring this to others and just raise awareness. And like you said, if you can, if you can help one kid, it's worth it. And
Yeah.
so awesome. Well, any words of wisdom that as you went through your journey and as you continue to help kids, there's a couple journeys I know you've gone through. There's been the dark journey and then there's the light journey. So any
Yeah.
words of wisdom in either of those journeys that you think really helped you that, by you sharing might help someone else?
Um, yeah, I feel like my journey started probably 20 years ago, even when I didn't know, I was in certain careers and stuff that have brought me to this place, and then me being able to, do the work that I need to do in here. So I don't know. Words of wisdom. I think just listen to your inner self. I mean, listen to, or your higher being, I relied on God a lot throughout my journey, and to be able to center me and then to bring me, to where I am right now. I think that, talking to maybe other survivors that, there are people out there that want to help you, and there are people, that want to help you with your journey and raising your kids, because that's also something that is dear to my heart, is, women who are working on raising their kids, but they're struggling a little bit maybe with what has happened, the trauma in their past. And, I'd be happy to be there for those people too. So I think that, my words of wisdom is just to listen to your higher power or your higher being, and go where, that where you're being directed to go. And that usually makes your work in life a lot easier and a lot more fun, is when you're doing that. Even on something heavy like this, it's encouraging to me that I get to be out there and do this. And I'm not. So the other aspect that I also wanted to say is, this whole class thing, we're not trying to scare people with this. There needs to be maybe a little bit of uncomfortableness, just so that we can start talking about it. But our goal in the Stewards of Children class specifically is to empower the adults to be able to then help children. So, we don't want it to be a scary thing that, going into this class, I'll make it as fun as we can, going into classes. So yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up at the end here, because this is a heavy topic. And you and I talked about that a little bit when we first met. It was a heavy topic, but it was also a topic that needs to have a light shined on it. It's a topic that needs to be more awareness brought about. So that's why it's, while it's outside the norm of my, the normal interviews that I do, which are more around, careers and such. But you're now making a career out of this. But it's a mission-based career. I mean, it's a purpose-based career, and a lot of the people I interview end up gravitating towards something that is so purposeful and meaningful for them, that it's not the 9 to 5, and it's not the financials. It's really the making a difference. So, and you're living it. You're living it, and you're doing it, and you are making a difference. So thank you so much for sharing that. And today was about helping people know they're not alone, right? That's part of what I talk about in my intro is, even if you're just stuck in your career, which seems related to this seems very trivial to me, that you're feeling stuck in your career. But anytime I think you're feeling stuck or you're the only one, it's so helpful that you can talk to someone else and get out of that stuckness, and recognize you're not alone, and get new ideas and resources and a way forward. And that's what you bring, Kim. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And if anybody is listening and they would like some more information on support groups, you know, I've got some internet support groups that are really, really helpful. You know, I really enjoy talking to some of the ladies on there and the gentlemen too. So if you're interested in that, just let me know. Let me know too.
Great. Well, on that note, I'll kind of wrap up then. And listeners, if you got a lot out of today's podcast, please subscribe below so that you're alerted for other interviews as they are posted. And if you have any questions for Kim or more information needed, you know, please post that on my website, lifestorycurator.com. That's where I post these interviews. And when I post the interview, I also include all kinds of resources and ways to connect with Kim. And so, you know, that's a big part of what I'd like to do is how do we raise awareness? How do we help people? Because maybe part of what you're feeling stuck in is something that happened in the past, right? And it's starting to manifest itself in a different way that you might feel is a career issue, and it's really more of a bigger issue. So anyway, I'm not a therapist. I can't even go there, but I just, you know, I'm just trying to do my public service and help raise awareness on such an important cause. So again, Kim, thank you for being with the Stewards of Children. And I'm so glad you found this darkness to light, because I can see that now you can talk about your life and how you're making a difference in such a powerful way. So
thank you, Kathy.
So on that note, listeners, let's stay safe, stay well, and let's keep sharing those stories. Thank you.